This is a CBS 12 News special report. Hate Rising, Holocaust Denial. Sponsored by Morse Life Holocaust Learning Experience and Jewish Federation of Palm Beach County, Palm Beach Center to combat anti-Semitism and hatred.
We know that this hatred still lives on. We know about anti-Semitism during the Holocaust, and it lives to this day.
I'm glad now finally that after 50 years that I finally started to speak about what I experienced and what I'm talking about now. When we entered that camp, it was the most horrific sight that I've ever seen or ever hoped to see. There was a pile of skeletal-like bodies on the left. Is it Eisenhower, who was the commanding general, and he said, I want you to take photos, I want you to get everything down, because someday people are going to say we made it up. They won't believe it. He was the one that shouted, someday people are going to say this didn't happen.
This impacted real people. It's hard to say why people choose to hate. You know, there is a saying that history likes to repeat itself. I always say that history doesn't repeat itself. We repeat history as human beings through our choices.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for Hate Rising, Holocaust Denial. As you just heard from Staff Sergeant Alan Moskin, in the last days of World War II, General Eisenhower was receiving firsthand accounts from trusted officers describing what they found at concentration camps across Europe. Reports so horrific, the general ordered his soldiers to record what they found in detail, so future generations would have proof of the Nazis' inhumane atrocities. And yet today, there are books, articles, and podcasts by individuals who insist the Holocaust never happened or that it has been extremely exaggerated to serve some evil purpose. Take a look. Harrowing photographs and film captured by Allied soldiers and news crews stand as a testament to the horrors of the Holocaust, as do the memories of survivors like Fanny Naratsky, who endured and shares her story even now in hopes the world will never forget.
And they took the baby, they threw it against the wall and shot the mother. I'll never forget that.
The Nazi perpetrators themselves, brought to justice at Nuremberg and elsewhere, acknowledged the industrialized mass murder and atrocities committed in an effort to eradicate the Jewish people.
The Holocaust was the most documented atrocity in history. The evidence is there for all to see.
But in spite of the pictures, the confessions, and the first-hand accounts of survivors, today there are those who insist this dark chapter in human history never happened.
If you did any honest investigation of the Holocaust, you'd realize that it is nothing but an international extortion racket by the Jews to bleed, blackmail, extort, and terrorize their enemies.
Lies fueled by conspiracy theories and extremist ideology attempt to chip away at the historical record and cast doubt on well-established facts.
My great-grandfather was burnt in a synagogue alive, with 500 Jews with the Nazis burnt.
Books with titles like Did 6 Million Really Die? And Synagogue of Satan claim to reveal secret truths about what really happened, but the motivations at their core are all the same: prejudice, bigotry, and hate.
You can have conspiracy theories that can quickly pick up steam for those that are uneducated.
Holocaust denial goes hand in hand with the resurgence of anti-Semitism around the globe, which was happening even before the Hamas terror attack on Israel, October 7th, but has undeniably sharpened since then.
We need to look at why are they seeking to denounce the Holocaust.
This recent spike in anti-Jewish violence and rhetoric is a disturbing echo of the years before Hitler rose to power in Germany, and a stark reminder of how even the most terrible crimes can fade in human memory.
And when you understand what happened in the Holocaust, there are no words to describe how obscene this was and what a catastrophe this was, both for the Jewish people and for the world.
Right now, joining me for a roundtable discussion on Holocaust denial are three people who have dedicated themselves to teaching about the Holocaust and ensuring it's never forgotten. Charlotte Plotsky, herself a Holocaust survivor, author, and educator, and Jenny Frumer, who's the Vice President of Strategic Initiatives at Morse Life, including the Holocaust Learning Initiative. And joining us from Tampa is Michael Eagle. He's the chairman of the Florida Holocaust Museum. And thank you all for being here. We do appreciate it. Charlotte, as a survivor, these claims that the Holocaust was fabricated and somehow blown out of proportion, that must be difficult to hear.
Well, it is. It is very difficult to hear. I mean, it's denying the loss of families, of friends, of homes, even of entire communities. I mean, it's Jew hatred and anti-Semitism, plain and simple.
Jenny, through your work at Morse Life, you run programs to support Holocaust survivors as well as being a driving force behind the Holocaust Learning Initiative. What's your perspective on all of this?
Well, working with Holocaust survivors and also second generation, these are children of Holocaust survivors. I think the situation today is really rife with all kinds of triggers. We know that the Holocaust happened. There's strong evidence, historical evidence. We hear testimonies over and over of Holocaust survivors and of those who are children of Holocaust survivors who tell their parents' stories and their grandparents' stories. At the Holocaust Learning Experience, we have testimonies of Holocaust survivors who talk about their experience in relation to lessons from the Holocaust, ways that we are reaching 5th through 12th graders. When we think about Holocaust and specifically Holocaust denial, we really must reach youth early so that these facts can resonate with them in truth rather than be propaganda.
And Jenny, we'll talk more about that in a minute, but let's get over to Michael. The Florida Holocaust Museum is an archive of history of the Holocaust, as well as a real testament to the enduring strength and resilience of the Jewish people and their allies during the war. Michael, your grandparents survived thanks to the bravery of farmers who gave their lives rather than betray them to the Nazis. This history must be very real to you and your family.
Every day of my life. It's literally, I wake up and the first thing I say to myself is, you're not supposed to be here, you're a miracle. And what are you going to do today to make yourself worthy of your existence and honor the people who did amazing things in order to make it so you could be alive? And that's why these lessons are so important. You know, Holocaust denial, I think, is an attempt to delegitimize not only the victims and the survivors and Jewish people in general, but it's also to try to devalue and delegitimize these lessons. And, how do we fight back? Through education and through action, and that's not a bumper sticker. I mean, I'm walking proof of what happens when people do the right thing, even in the most horrible circumstances. You know, the funny thing about anti-Semitism, I mean, I say funny in a sarcastic way, and Holocaust denial is you can meet one neo-Nazi or one anti-Semite who will tell you the Holocaust didn't go far enough, and the other one will tell you it never happened. I mean, that's why this is so, sadly nonsensical.
Thanks, Michael. When we come back, some shocking numbers revealing younger Americans' attitudes about the Holocaust.
The Holocaust Learning Experience, developed by Morse Life, is a non-profit organization entrusted by the state of Florida to develop and deliver lessons from the Holocaust to students throughout Florida.
In the battle against hate, bigotry, and anti-Semitism, I will take a stand.
I will defend the truth.
Get involved today. Education is the key to ending anti-Semitism, hate, and bigotry.
You're watching Hate Rising, Holocaust Denial, a CBS 12 News special report.
Last month, The Economist commissioned a wide-ranging survey of American adults, and the answers to a few of the questions about Israel and the Holocaust, they shocked the world. Questions like this one. Do you agree or disagree with this statement? The Holocaust is a myth. 20% of Americans between 18 to 29 years old agreed or tended to agree. That's 1 in 5. Of course, 0% of Americans over 65 agreed they or their parents remember it. A slightly higher percentage of the youngest U.S. adults believe the Holocaust has been exaggerated, and nearly 1 in 5 disagreed that Israel has the right to exist. Michael Eagle is joining us from the Holocaust Museum. Literally, they have trunks full, Michael, of age-appropriate educational material that is shipped all over the country through the Holocaust to help kids to learn about the Holocaust. But where are these young people getting these ideas?
You know, it's social media, it's the internet, it's lots of different areas. And I think, you know, these are statistics that are scary, and they're sad, and they're frustrating, and they're hurtful, but they're also create opportunity for those of us who are battling back against ignorance, because these are people that don't know. If they're not malicious, then they are people who don't know. That's ignorance. And I often say that ignorance is not a bad word. Ignorance means you didn't know. We have an obligation when we're ignorant about something to go learn about it and learn about it correctly, using facts and actual sources. So in addition to all of the terrible things that these statistics show, it's also important to know that it's an opportunity, and for those of us in the civilized community to step up and be part of making that change.
A lot of the visitors to the Holocaust Museum, Jenny, are young people. I know you deal directly with the public school system. How has the system failed us?
We have not done a good job educating our children historically. The historicity almost is non-existent. And I think that young youth today are learning in sound bites rather than deep history.
Charlotte, how do you feel about this? Is there a way to reverse this trend?
Well, first of all, I'd like to remark on the survey, because the Claims Conference, which is the material claims against Germany, the Conference of Material Claims Against Germany, did a survey of millennials and Gen Z in 2020. Anybody can look up the results online. And they also had shocking results. So not that much has changed in 2 years. But the interesting thing to me was that almost 64% had said they wanted to learn more about the Holocaust, and they wish that it was mandated in schools.
This Saturday is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Let's get back over to Michael. And, you know, Michael, talk a little bit about what this means in this time when, according to the Anti-Defamation League, anti-Semitic violence and rhetoric is reaching levels not seen in decades.
Well, I think it's for some people like the three of us, for example. I mean, International Holocaust Remembrance Day is almost every day, but it's really an extra day and a day for the world to stop and really understand and think about these lessons. You know, going along the lines of what we were just talking about, you know, another component of this is we have to make sure that these lessons resonate in a way that is meaningful to people, that gives them something that they can, some action items, something they can do.
I know, Charlotte, you have quite a story to tell. What do you remember most about that time?
Well, war is hell, as they say. And I lived through it, through the invasion of Belgium, which started in May 1940. And I have to tell you, the Reich's Nazi Party was merciless as far as citizens go. I mean, even when we were able to get on a train, which was marked with the Red Cross symbol, it had to stop every mile or so, and we'd all have to go out and hide in fields because they were strafing the train, and then they'd try and strafe us in the fields. I mean, these are men, women, and children trying to run away from the war. What are you after us for? Go after the soldiers. So that's the first thing that I remember, the invasion. And then I remember when we finally were sent back to Antwerp, where I was born and where I spent my early childhood. The first thing we encountered when we walked back through the pedestrian tunnel of Antwerp was a sign on my father's business, Jew-owned business. Eventually, it was you couldn't own a business if you were a Jewish person. You had to turn it over. You had to wear a yellow star and so on to identify yourself. Luckily, because of the bravery of my parents, they had spent months and months trying to find ways to get out. And finally, we were able to escape, but always at the risk of our lives. And I remember that as a child because we were hidden in the back of a tandem truck. My mother had the hand over my face. I shouldn't cry out. And we had to stop at checkpoints. And we never knew whether we could get through or not. And finally we get through. We end up in occupied Paris in the middle of the night, and the person that was supposed to pick us up and take us on never showed up. So here we are in occupied Paris. So, you know, I could go on for another half hour and I won't, but I mean, that's the kind of childhood I had.
When we come back, final thoughts from our panel and a heroic piece of Holocaust history you may not have heard about.
You're watching Hate Rising, Holocaust Denial, a CBS 12 News special report.
The Holocaust Learning Experience, developed by Morse Life, is a non-profit organization entrusted by the state of Florida to develop and deliver lessons from the Holocaust to students throughout Florida.
In the battle against hate, bigotry, and anti-Semitism, I will take a stand.
I will defend the truth.
Get involved today. Education is the key to ending anti-Semitism, hate, and bigotry.
You're watching Hate Rising, Holocaust Denial, a CBS 12 News special report.
Welcome back. Before we wrap up this discussion, we want to give each of you a final chance to talk about your thoughts on the topic of Holocaust denial or even the crisis of anti-Semitism here in the U.S. and around the world as we look ahead to Holocaust Remembrance Day later this week. Michael, let's start with you in Tampa.
Thank you again for having me. Such a special episode and also just such a special time and a time of opportunity for us. I think, you know, it is, we will all keep, I think, underscoring how important these lessons are. And we have to fight back against denial, against ignorance, against anti-Semitism. These lessons matter. I know I keep saying it and I will keep saying it. My grandparents would say to my brother and me, it was the worst in people, but you must tell the world that it was also the best in people, and both of those things matter immensely. And my grandmother was one of 7, and she's the only one who survived in her family. So most of my family was eradicated. We talked about statistics today. 0.3% of the Jews in the city where my grandparents are from survived. I don't make any sense to even exist, and my grandparents taught us that in a loving way, and they told us about the worst in people, but they emphasized the best, and they said to my brother and me, do not be indifferent, do something. And it's my goal to honor that and the people like my grandparents and to pass along to the world that same urgency of do something. The one thing you should not be is indifferent. So get yourself educated, learn, and then couple that with action. One person at a time, we will change this.
Well
Thank
said.
you for having me.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michael. Jenny, final thoughts?
Some of my final thoughts are really around education. I think that we must continue to ensure that we make lessons from the Holocaust available. I also think that International Holocaust Remembrance Day is a time when we can be grateful about the liberation of Auschwitz, and I think that we can be grateful for General Eisenhower who insisted on documenting everything that they saw so that the world would not forget, because he was aware that one day there will be people who will say this never happened. So I believe that we can take the opportunity to ensure that those youth, but also older adults as well, who have stories to tell, Holocaust survivors and their families, really are able to be offered that way of connecting. I really believe that if we find ways to connect with one another, there would be less bias, prejudice, and hate in this world.
Strong words. Charlotte, why don't you wrap this up for us?
Well, I think I'm going to try and do this a little more personally. During COVID, I took the time. We had 2 years where we were under total lockdown, because I lived in a senior community where we were locked down. Sure. And I wrote 2 books. One I wrote was called Then and Again, and it was about my 5 visits back to Belgium to recreate our family's escape, but also to put some context around it. You know, what was going around. And I visited all the deportation centers. I visited the SS concentration camp in Belgium, etc., which almost nobody knows about. And so I decided what I would do is write this book and bring in all the things that I learned were happening all around us and that are still available for people to visit, okay, and learn more about. The other book, it was an anthology that I did of over 85 witness testimonies. And those included liberators of camps like Dachau, et cetera, to get some witness statements out there. I concentrated on Western Europe because most of what's written is about Eastern Europe, but not that much is known about what happened in Belgium and Holland and France. Oh, I went to a classroom last week at Meyer Academy, and I testified as a survivor. And one of the teachers asked to get a copy of my book because she wanted to, learn more. And I heard back from her already. She thought it was riveting. So that made me very happy and feel like I did something worthwhile.
Well, I think it's fair to say you have stayed extremely active. And by the way, it is terrific to have somebody that's such an upstander in our community. And your story is inspiring, Charlotte.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We want to thank you again as well, along with all of our panelists, for taking part in this discussion today. Charlotte Plotsky, again, Holocaust survivor, author, and educator. Ginny Fruman, who's with the Vice President of Strategic Initiatives at Morse Life. And in Tampa, joining us is Chairman of the Florida Holocaust Museum, Michael Eagle. And we just want to thank all of you again for being with us. And before we leave, we want to, leave you with this. It's an inspiring story of heroism during the Holocaust, a group that rescued hundreds of Jewish people from the Nazis during the height of World War II in Europe. Our Lily Ortiz spoke with the last surviving members of the rescuers, known as the Bielski brothers, and one of the Holocaust survivors whose family they saved.
That is the fighters, 2 group of fighters, and you...
The moment you walk inside Aaron Bell's Palm Beach home, front and center are commendations, plaques. Decades-old photos of Aaron with relatives line the walls. All part of one of the most successful rescue efforts of Jews during the Holocaust in World War II.
If you do good things, why do you want to forget? You want to live with that.
These days, he goes by Aaron Bell. But the 96-year-old is the last living sibling of the Bielski brothers, heroes who saved 1,200 Jews from the Nazis, living in the forest through brutal winters, starvation, and the ever-present danger they would be found by German soldiers.
What a person does for survival, a hell of a lot.
With the help of his wife, Henrika, they take us back to the very beginning. It was 1941. Aaron wasn't yet a teenager when the German army invaded the Bielski small village in what is now Belarus. His parents were murdered by the Nazis. Other family members shipped off to ghettos. Aaron hid in the forest with 3 older brothers, a place they knew well from playing there as children.
It's hard to understand, but it's a fact of life. That's the way it was. Otherwise, you will not survive.
In spite of his age, Aaron was critical to the success of many of the brothers' rescue missions.
He was the small, very tiny boy. He was going to ghetto and get people because he can go under the wall and he can talk to people in the ghetto and they can go out from ghetto and he take them to the base where they were staying.
They collected guns and stole food from nearby farms. Over the next 3 years, the community in the forest grew. Many of the men, women, and children they rescued stayed to help, offering whatever skills they had.
They have everything. They have bakery, they have doctors, they have nurses, they have fixing rifle, they have shoemaker.
They built underground shelters, wooden bunkers to hide in, many of which are still there today.
They put it together, and here is wooden table. That's all they was living like this.
And they had to do this so that they would not get caught.
German would not see them. The top of the hall was covered by bushes, by branches.
I remember everything that transpired in the woods.
Melvin Blankfeld was there. His family, one of the lucky ones rescued by the fighters from the forest.
I think I'm the only survivor of Belsky's group.
His mother became part of the Bielski Brigade. They joined forces with Soviet partisans and took revenge on the Nazis.
People were just from all sides cutting a piece of ear, a piece of the nose, a piece of the tongue, a piece of whatever they could cut. This is for my mother, this is for my brother, this is for my children, for what they did to a whole civilization of Jews who did nothing more than just Jews.
When the Russians liberated the area in the summer of 1944, 1,200 Jews made it out of the woods alive, thanks to the Bielskis.
This is defiance. This is actually us people who were living in Belsky's partisan camp. This little boy here who couldn't look into the sun, that was me. And the lady behind me was my mother right here.
Their story became famous in books, even a movie. Today, there are thousands of descendants of those they rescued who know the name Bielski and what it means to their families.
There are so many people out there thankful for what you did.
If you can save a person, it's a brilliant thing. Simple as that.
Aaron chronicled his life after the Holocaust in photos carefully secured in albums.
Aaron in the Israeli army. This is his brother Zush. That is my husband here in Israel with his girlfriend.
Even though Aaron changed his last name to Bell after moving to the U.S., he'll always be a Bielski and hopes the world will remember him and his brothers for shining the light of human solidarity in the face of darkness.
Yeah.
Don't cry.
Saved a lot of people.
In Palm Beach, Luli Ortiz, CBS 12 News.
This has been a CBS 12 News special presentation, Hate Rising, Holocaust Denial, sponsored by Morse Life Holocaust Learning Experience and Jewish Federation of Palm Beach County, Palm Beach Center to Combat Anti-Semitism and Hatred. For more information, go to cbs12.com.
The Holocaust Learning Experience, developed by Morse Life, is a non-profit organization entrusted by the state of Florida to develop and deliver lessons from the Holocaust to students throughout Florida.
In the battle against hate, bigotry, and anti-Semitism, I will take a stand.
I will defend the truth.
Get involved today. Education is the key to ending anti-Semitism, hate, and bigotry.